Hey everybody, this is a Computer Geek 01010101 here, and I have a rather interesting video for all of y'all today. This video is going to be regarding the 2019 Mac Pro and the Pro Display XDR announced yesterday during WWDC 2019. If you don't want to watch this video, let me sum it up for you. Do not buy the 2019 Mac Pro or the Pro Display XDR. If you want to know why, keep on watching. First of all, let's get familiar with what was advertised. They said it has up to an Intel Xeon 28-core processor with a TDP of 300 watts, a terabyte and a half of 6-channel DDR4 ECC RAM, 8 PCIe slots, 4 of which are double wide, 3 of which are single wide, 2 10 gigabit Ethernet ports, a graphics card with an X16 PCIe connector, a TDP of 500 watts, a fanless design, all wrapped into a package called an MPX or a Mac Pro expansion module. Additionally, it is claimed to have a 1.4 kilowatt PSU or power supply unit and a quote-unquote advanced thermal architecture, end quote. Graphics options available in order of increasing performance are the Radeon Pro 580X, the Radeon Pro Vega 2 with 14 teraflops of graphics computing power, 32 gigabytes of HBM2 video RAM with a bandwidth of 1 terabyte per second, and the Radeon Pro Vega 2 Duo with double the specifications of the Radeon Pro Vega 2. Apple calls it, quote, the world's most powerful graphics card. Another expansion option available is what Apple calls the, quote, afterburner card. They claim that it's a hardware accelerator card capable of processing 6 billion pixels per second. It can handle up to 3 streams of ProRes RAW 8K video or 12 streams of ProRes RAW 4K video. Apple also has a 6K Retina display available for use with the 2019 Mac Pro called the, quote, Pro Display XDR. Apple says that it's over 40% larger than the Retina 5K display. It supports the P3 wide color gamut, 10-bit color, has a 1:1 contrast ratio, and has reference modes built in. It has 4 Thunderbolt 3 ports for connectivity to hardware and over 20 million pixels. It magnetically attaches to an adjustable stand that allows it to effortlessly adjust. It can also be tilted vertically and daisy chained to run up to 6 displays at one time. Additionally, a nanotexture version of the display is available for glare reduction while retaining image quality and contrast ratio. Initial launch prices start at $4,999 for the Pro Display XDR, $5,999 for the nanotexture version of the Pro Display XDR, $199 for a VESA adapter, and $999 for the stand. The Mac Pro's base configuration costs $5,999 and is equipped with an 8-core Intel Xeon processor, 32 gigabytes of DDR4 ECC RAM, AMD Radeon Pro 580X graphics, and a 256 gigabyte SSD. Right off the bat, you're not getting all 8 of those PCIe slots. The 8th PCIe slot is populated with an I/O card that has 2 Thunderbolt 3 ports, 2 USB Type-A ports, and a 3.5mm audio mini jack. For your information, that's also known as a 1/8 inch or 3.5mm audio jack. If you're doing loads of 4K, 8K video editing, you're 110% going to want at least 2 Radeon Pro Vega 2s and the Afterburner card. If you want anything other than the base graphics card, you're automatically losing 4 PCIe slots if you purchase 2 cards which are not the stock graphics card. Why? Because Apple, in their infinite wisdom, has decided to make the Radeon Pro Vega 2 and Vega 2 Duo use 4 PCI slot spaces, blocking the PCIe slot above the one they're plugged into. So far, that's 6 PCIe slots gone. 2 with graphics cards installed, 2 blocked by the graphics cards, 1 with the Afterburner card, and the 8th slot taken up by an I/O card. If you want loads of storage and opt to purchase a Promise Pegasus controller, that's 2 more slots gone, leaving you with no PCIe expansion slots left. So those claimed 8 PCIe slots plummets down to 2 if you opt to not purchase a Promise Pegasus controller. You lose them all if you do purchase a controller. Also, let's have a look at that keynote. So from the factory, you're not getting all 8 of those PCIe slots because the top one, also known as slot 8, is populated by an I/O card. Now, let's take a look at slot 8 in better detail. Wrong page. Right here. Right here. Does that look oddly shaped? It should. That's where the I/O card plugs in. Also, there's an X4 PCIe slot buried in there. Everyone I know would keep that card in there for the USB Type-A connectors and the audio jack. See, Apple is disguising these intentional design decisions that force big-name clients to either buy more hardware or pick and choose as so-called options. Now, let's have a look at the graphics card options. More specifically, the connection options. The AMD the Radeon Pro 580X has 2 HDMI connectors on the card and 4 DisplayPort connections routed back into the system's Thunderbolt 3 bus. The Radeon Pro Vega 2 has 1 HDMI connector and 4 Thunderbolt 3 connections on the card. 2 DisplayPort connections routed back into the system's Thunderbolt 3 bus. The Radeon Pro Vega 2 Duo has the same configuration as the Vega 2, but there's an additional 2 DisplayPort connections routed back into the system bus for a total of 4 DisplayPort connections on the system bus per card. Want to know what HDMI standard they're using there? HDMI 2.0 from 2013. You heard right, Apple is using a 6-year-old HDMI standard. HDMI, Wikipedia. There's 2.0. HDMI 2.0, referred to by some manufacturers as HDMI UHD, was released on September 4th, 2013. If you're working, you heard right, Apple is using a 6-year-old HDMI standard for a high-end workstation in 2019. If you're working with 8K content, you're definitely not going to want to use the HDMI ports on these cards. That brings us to the Afterburner card. Yep. I hope I'm on the right page. Nope, this is going to be for later. Introducing Apple Afterburner. Yep. Onwards to the Afterburner card. In the keynote, it was advertised as being able to process 6 million pixels per second. Want to know how many pixels are in a single frame of 8K video? About 34 million pixels. Want to know how long it's going to take that Afterburner card to process one frame of 8K video? About 6 seconds. Want to know how fast a good graphics card can process one frame of 8K video? Milliseconds. It's like trying to use a Pentium 2 to assist an Intel Core i7-4790K in rendering 1080p video. Does that Afterburner card sound like something you want now? That brings us to the power supply, provided I can find it. Power supply. It is 100% proprietary and does not conform to the ATX specification in any way, shape, or form. Remember that 1.4 kilowatts of power that was advertised? Well, that's peak power. Japanese customers, get ready to buy a 100 volt to 120 volt transformer. This power supply has automatic voltage sensing and isn't afraid to mess your day over with it. If your line voltage is within the 100 to 107 volt range, you get a maximum continuous rating of 1180 watts. From 108 to 240 volts, you get a maximum continuous rating of 1280 watts. Every other power supply I've seen advertises its power as the maximum continuous wattage it can handle. And that brings us to the gigabit Ethernet ports. The 10 gigabit Ethernet ports, actually. Okay, still not going to need this page. go back to the keynote video. Yeah, we're going to need to go back to the keynote video so we can get a better view of the system. Clackety clackety clack, Model M. Okay, we're just going to skip on through until... There! Right here, here and here is where the 10 gigabit Ethernet ports are. Those two 10 gigabit Ethernet ports are literally located right next to the power supply. How much electrical noise do you think that's going to pick up? If you're sending massive amounts of data over the network and utilizing the full bandwidth of both 10 gigabit Ethernet faces and you have a power failure, you're going to get massive amounts of electrical interference as an attached UPS switches over to battery power and the Mac Pro's power supply momentarily loses AC power for a few hundred milliseconds. Also, what are the chances that those ports don't have proper EMI and or RFI shielding from the rest of the power supply? My 2002 Apple Cinema Display's DVI to ADC adapter has no such shielding. So good luck with that. Data errors and retransmissions, here we come! Now that brings us to the processor. We can find it. There we go. It's held in with spring clips. Spring clips. A little steel wire that goes around the processor to hold it in place. How long do you think that'll last before it gets jarred loose during transit? Also, do you want to know how much power that CPU pulls? 300 watts in the highest end computer. That's not in... Yeah, 300 watts. Right there on Apple's website. That's not at 12 volts DC, 5 volts DC, or even 3.3 volts DC. 1.2 volts DC is about what that CPU runs at. Want to know how much current that is? 250 amps of DC current. Want to know how much current that is at 3.3 volts DC, the most likely input voltage for the CPU VRMs in the Mac Pro? About 91 amps of DC current. How long do you think a sub 50 micrometer thick VIA will survive having 100 amps or even 250 amps of DC current pumped through it? I don't think it's going to be very long before that burns through and kills your $30,000 editing workstation. Products designed to fail. Here's another example. The 2018 and later years MacBook. Prior to 2018, the display connector had a 56-volt DC backlight pin and a signal pin going to the processor separated by a ground pin. If that connector was damaged, that 56-volt DC line would short to ground and the processor would be safe. Starting with the 2018 MacBook, that ground pin got moved. Now that 56-volt DC backlight pin is right next to that signal line. If that connector gets damaged, that backlight pin is going to short to that signal pin and kill the processor. You cannot purchase a replacement processor anywhere. Your logic board will have to be replaced. The only exception is the MacBook Pro when equipped with dedicated graphics. Instead of the processor being killed, a graphics switching chip gets killed. You can purchase and install a replacement switching chip. Water trying to go down the wrong way. Yeah, I'm going off a script here, and this is a one-take, one-shot, do-it-or-die recording. Now on to the RAM and storage. Earlier, I mentioned that the base model Mac Pro is equipped with 32 gigabytes of DDR4 ECC RAM. That same base model costs $6,000. I can find 32 gigabytes of DDR4 ECC RAM on Amazon for under $350 shipped. Too little RAM for the price point, Apple. The base model Mac Pro also comes with a 256GB SSD. That same model of Mac Pro with too little RAM for the price point has entirely too little storage for the price point. I can get a Samsung Evo 256GB SSD for less than $70 shipped. Step it up, Apple. You can do better. Want to know the price of a promised Pegasus R4i? That hasn't been announced as of the writing of this script, but it's soon to be. Another point regarding the storage. Encryption. All data on the internal storage is hardware encrypted. Okay, that's... yeah. One of the drive's croaks, data recovery outside your computer made impossible thanks to Apple. Encryption, once again. The Mac Pro has what Apple calls the T2 security chip. It makes sure only Apple authorized code can run. Windows and Linux users, you're out of luck. Where was I? Windows and Linux users, you're out of luck. Only option is emulation, and that's not going to fly with most people. Also, above slot 8, okay. Also, above slot 8, you see that plastic panel with a few ports on it? Yeah, no idea why that's there. There's a random USB port and 2 SATA ports. Why are they there? Good luck solving that mystery. Onwards to cooling and overall chassis design. What's the basic design of the Mac Pro? A wind tunnel. Hardware temperature is critically dependent on the 4 fans in the system. If this top front fan dies, the CPU overheats. If the middle fan dies, graphics card 2 and the afterburner card overheats. If the bottom fan dies, graphics card 1 and the processor overheat. Lose that blower fan, and that air tunnel design is lost. Air no longer flows where it's supposed to, and the system turns into a massive oven, roasting everything inside. There's a handle that lifts up in the middle of the top of the case. Want to know how long it is before that gets used to carry the system? Probably not long. Even worse, it's easy to accidentally turn to the unlocked position, and if you're carrying the system by that handle, it's going to fall to the ground. Who uses Thunderbolt hardware exclusively? Cool, y'all can stop watching. Have a nice day. Oh, no one left? Figured. You're going to be thrown full force into adapter hell by using this machine. If you remove that I/O card to use that PCIe X4 slot, you're going to need even more adapters. Adapters on adapters on adapters. Sounds great, doesn't it? If all that's not bad enough, have a look at Apple's warranty clause. Have a look at Apple's warranty clause. Your Mac Pro comes with 90 days of complimentary technical support and a 1-year limited warranty. Purchase AppleCare Plus for Mac to extend your coverage to 3 years from your AppleCare Plus purchase date and add up to 2 incidents of accidental damage coverage, each subject to a service fee of $99 for external enclosure damage or $299 for other repairable damage plus applicable tax. What big-name studio doesn't run their editing workstation for less than 3 years? For how much these machines cost, you'd expect a better warranty. See. On to the Pro Display XDR. Remember how I mentioned that the starting price for the Pro Display XDR is $4,999? Well, that monitor doesn't have a stand. That'll run you an additional $999. If you think that's bad, you're not alone. Not even the crowd liked it. Remember how I mentioned that the starting price for the Pro Display XDR is $4,999? Well, that monitor doesn't have a stand. That'll run you an additional $999. Or if you want to mount it to a VESA mount, that'll run you $199. Apple at it again, nickel and diming everyone to death. At least include the VESA adapter in the box. Also, I do not see dozens of mechanical pieces in an area less than that of 4 AA batteries recording, surviving 10 years of daily adjustments. Something in that breaks and your $5 or $6 display comes hurtling to the floor. Also, the monitor attaches magnetically to the standard VESA adapter. If you're running this machine in a lab and someone turns on a strong magnetic field, should you have to worry about your display tumbling to the floor because a magnetic field holding the display to the VESA adapter or stand is neutralized? I didn't think so. Apple, use mechanical quick connects. If all this isn't enough to make you avoid the 2019 Mac Pro and Pro Display XDR, I don't know what is. Let me reiterate this. Production studios, labs, everyone, do not buy this. So yeah, if you do go and purchase one of these computers, you're on your own. I won't feel bad for you when it self-destructs. Anyways, I have no idea if this will get media attention. If it does, feel free to use portions of this video. Other YouTubers, go right ahead. Anyways, this is the Computer Geek 01010101 here. Have a nice day. And don't buy the Mac Pro or Pro Display XDR.